So, it seems like Putin's long-term plan is all about getting rid of Western influence in Ukraine, right? He's looking to stretch this out and solidify Russia's grip, and this strategy might even carry on until 2026. Now, when Russia turns down ceasefire offers, it really shows how Putin sees Ukraine as a buffer zone against NATO. In his eyes, NATO's expansion is a huge threat to Russia's security. This approach of his is all about creating a political and military divide between Ukraine and NATO. And honestly, it could stir up even more conflict in the region. So, understanding these tactics is key for making sense of what might come next. Let's shift our focus a bit to Transnistria. It's this politically split area in Moldova where Russian troops have been hanging out since 1990, making it easier for Russia to pull off military moves when needed. And speaking of risks, the Baltic countries like Estonia and Latvia are definitely in the crosshairs, thanks to their closeness to Russia and the large Russian-speaking populations there. This situation could easily trigger some form of military intervention. You know, NATO's Article 5 is supposed to offer protection, saying that an attack on one member is like an attack on all. But with the current divisions within NATO, it might weaken their ability to respond together to Russian aggression. Switching gears, let's talk about energy. The control over major pipelines in Georgia, like the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan and South Caucasus pipelines, is super important for Europe's energy security. These pipelines give Europe options besides relying on Russian oil and gas. Kazakhstan also comes into play here with its massive natural resources and its historical ties to Russia. But here's the twist: Kazakhstan is increasingly leaning towards China and branching out its international partnerships. Speaking of China, their Belt and Road Initiative is really strengthening connections with Kazakhstan by pouring money into infrastructure. This development is helping Kazakhstan lean less on Russia, which shows how the dynamics in Central Asia are shifting. On the energy front, ExxonMobil is making these game-changing multi-billion-dollar investments in Kazakhstan's oil reserves. This is really important for Kazakhstan's energy independence and helps to reduce Russian influence in the area. Now, let's look at the Arctic. The melting ice is opening new shipping routes, which is shaking up global trade dynamics and grabbing the military interest of both Russia and the US. In fact, Russia has this extensive military presence in the Arctic, complete with bases and advanced tech, highlighting just how strategic they see protecting these resource-rich areas. However, here's the catch: the US is kind of lagging behind Russia in terms of Arctic infrastructure. This gap makes it tough for the US to keep up with Russia's capabilities in building icebreakers and controlling trade routes. And let's not forget about Russia's plan for mass lithium production. This aims to lessen their reliance on oil and gas, especially given the sanctions imposed by Western countries. You see, lithium is super important for the electric vehicle and renewable energy markets, which puts Russia in a position to potentially dominate these sectors in the future. To top it off, Russia is strengthening its ties with China and Iran as a way to challenge Western dominance. These alliances are pretty crucial for Russia to hit its global objectives. And then we have the BRICS nations growing closer to Russia. They're forming a significant alternative to Western institutions, and together they represent a big chunk of the world's population and economy. Finally, NATO faces some unprecedented challenges. Europe is working hard to counter Russia's military advances, and keeping unity within NATO is absolutely essential to thwart Putin's ambitious plans.